What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another review. This time we're taking a look at Dracula's Daughter, the sequel to the 1931 classic. Now, Dracula's Daughter pretty much takes place right after the events of the original Dracula movie, as it follows Dracula's titular daughter named Countess Zaleska as she's on a quest to rid herself of the vampire's curse, though she ultimately succumbs to this curse, while all the while trying to seduce a man named Dr. Jeffrey Garth into joining her as her undead companion. That's pretty much the overall basic premise of the movie, so let's talk about it. I overall feel that Dracula's Daughter is not as good as the original movie, but I think on its own, it's okay. I think Dracula's Daughter is alright. This is not a masterpiece of filmmaking by any stretch of the imagination, but it does have some pretty good highlights to it. Kicking it right off, Gloria Holden, who plays Countess Zaleska, Dracula's daughter, I thought she did a really good job at portraying the Countess, and I like how she's able to juggle this character, many different emotions to this character. I like how she portrays Dracula's daughter as a sympathetic villain. You know, she does not want to have the curse of the vampire. She wants to be rid of the vampire's curse. Of course, throughout the course of the movie, her mission to eradicate the curse from her overall fails, and she pretty much succumbs to it. But I thought Gloria Holden did a good job at portraying a very sympathetic villain. When you need to feel sorry for her, you feel sorry for her. But when she needs to be creepy, she has a level of seductiveness to her, and I thought she handled it very, very well. Another highlight of this movie would have to be her second in command, named Sandor, and I thought the actor who played Sandor, his name is Irving Perchel. I thought he did a really good job playing Sandor, and I just like the robotic, just stern portrayal that Sandor has in this movie. He's very intimidating, and whenever he says something, like it has a robotic menace to it, and I thought that was actually really pretty cool. He's like the bodyguard. He's in a handful of scenes here and there. His whole subplot is that he is only doing the Countess's bidding so that he can be her companion, so that he can be her undead companion. Of course, at the end of the movie, she pretty much is like, no, and she wants the doctor instead, and this is what leads Sandor to actually kill Valeska at the climax, while also being shot and killed himself at the end of the movie, too. So, I think Sandor, as a character, is fine. As a performance, one of the big highlights of this movie, Dr. Van Helsing. This movie's called Von. I don't know why they changed it to Von. But Van Helsing returns in this movie, played by Edward Von Sloan. And the first couple of minutes of this movie acts as a sequel to Dracula, where we get some of the aftermath. But then it goes into a completely different direction, and Van Helsing pretty much disappears until like until like the third act of this movie, where the movie remembers that he's actually a character. The entire time he's pretty much in police custody as he's being tried for Dracula's death and the death of Renfield. And his character as a whole completely disappears, and this Jeffrey Garth character pretty much enters the fray, and Garth is established as a protege of Van Helsing. And I thought Otto Kruger, who played Dr. Garth, I thought he was okay in the role. I honestly would have preferred if we just took this character out of the movie and just put Van Helsing in his place. I think the movie would have had a much better flow, and it would have gave Van Helsing and Edward Sloan much more to do as both an actor and a character, instead of doing absolutely nothing. He just waits around for the climax to come until the movie needs him again. Other than that, he's just doing absolutely nothing. But to the credit of Garth, I thought he did it. Sorry, to the credit of Otto Kruger, I think he did a pretty decent job. I like the scenes that he has with his secretary named Janet. They provide some good humor. I like the scenes with Garth and Zaleska. The movie plays it as a sexual seduction between these two, but it's very, very subtle with it. In some areas, this movie is very, very subtle with his sexuality, and in other ways, it's kind of blatant with his sexuality, particularly when Zaleska is trying to seduce women. Yeah, this movie does not hide the fact that it has very lesbian overtones when those scenes are happening. So it's kind of interesting how, seeing this movie in 1936, they were able to get away with stuff like that. Right, but it makes the movie memorable and interesting, because that's what it was most remembered for, is the lesbian overtones that it had, because it was very, very new in 1930 in the time of 1936. You didn't see stuff like that. So in terms of breaking down some walls, pretty good job for a movie like this, for just what was known as a B horror movie. It broke down some barriers, and you got to give it credit for doing that. And like I said, you have a stellar cast, though. Like I said, Von Sloan is misutilized as Van Helsing. He does absolutely nothing, and you have these two bumbling police officers, and the movie spends 3 minutes on these guys doing a comedic bit, and it's completely not funny. But it's a great showcase in just how bad acting can be, even by 1936 standards. Like, this acting was really not good. You can tell they're reading it off the page, especially this one guy with a mustache that won't quit. Yeah, those two bumbling officers, they add nothing to the movie, and that scene is just filler and not necessary. And that's another thing. I think this movie has a problem trying to balance its humor and comedy. Like, in certain scenes, it can balance its humor and comedy very, very well, and in other scenes, it just feels like it's filler. And I'm not a big fan of that. That's just tonally, this movie's inconsistent. However, when this movie goes for its creep factor, it's pretty creepy. It's got a good, creepy atmosphere to it. I thought the director Lambert Hiller did a great job at creating a creepy atmosphere. This movie's at its best when Zaleska is in her seduction mode and her bottom face is completely covered, and all you see are her eyes, and those eyes of hers tell a story because they just have a level of just seductive, just hypnotic creepiness to it. And that's where I feel this movie is at its highlight. There's a great scene where Zaleska's like in the woods cemetery someplace, and she's picking up a wooden cross, and she's surrounded by like fog, and she's dressed all in black in a cloak, and it's really creepy, great Halloween like imagery, and I love it a lot. So yeah, and I also do enjoy the third act that takes place in Transylvania at Dracula's castle. That was actually pretty cool to itself too, and even though Dracula is referenced all throughout this movie, Bela Lugosi unfortunately does not make an appearance, which is a shame because I think that would have been pretty cool and would add a little bit more to this movie. But that's neither here nor there. So anyway, overall, I think Dracula's Daughter is a decent Universal horror film. I think Countess Valeska is one of the more underutilized, one of the more underutilized Universal horror monsters. She's a tragic villainess, though I think her first movie, while solid, could have been a whole lot better if it just had a little bit more, if it was just fleshed out just a little bit more. But it did have some good ideas to it, so I'll give it that. But my overall grade is going to be a 6.5 out of 10. I do recommend it if you want to see it. Overall, it's not that bad, but you can watch it, but you can skip it because it doesn't really add much to the overall Dracula mythos. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Dracula's Daughter. Let me know yours in the comment sections down below. Like the video and subscribe, and I'll check you back next time for more.